Chapter 5, Lovesickness Will Make You Grow Old. Part 1. The lamps in the inn shone brilliantly. Two of the waiters who had just arrived were arranging chopsticks at one of the tables, and the 7 finely dressed young women were sitting in a row of chairs. Some were whispering amongst themselves, others were sitting quietly, thinking. The men who were coming to tear down the building had not yet arrived, but Liu Qingji had. Kong Lanjun had told him not to act rashly, and not to come to this place. Yet he came anyway. He was the type of person who did things his own way. As he entered the inn, everyone seemed to be frozen in shock. This was not who they were waiting for. Other than those people, no one else should have arrived. Liu Qingji seemed not to notice. He swaggered in and sat at the table the waiters had just set. "Bring me 3 cold appetizers, 4 hot dishes, and 5 bottles of Jiafan." Jiafan was a famous brand of wine in Hangzhou. Experienced drinkers said that the flavor was even more satisfying than Kuniyang wine. The waiters stood by, panic-stricken, unsure whether or not to pour wine. This was not an ordinary inn, but Liu Qingji treated it as if it were. With a smile, he beckoned at the 7 young women and said, "Come over here, all of you. A man drinking without a woman to accompany him is like a plate of food with no salt." The young women looked at him, and he looked at them. They seemed too terrified to even move. "I'm not a man-eating tiger," said Liu Qingji. "What are you afraid of? Come on over." Just then, laughter rang out, delicate, like the sound of silver bells. And then a charming voice could be heard, "I'm here." When the laughter started, it appeared to be coming from very far away. But by the time the voice had finished speaking, its owner had already arrived. She flew in like a gust of wind, and sat down next to Liu Qingji. She was a woman, and a very beautiful woman at that. Not just beautiful, but entrancing, especially her 2 eyes, which had the ability to charm a person to their bones. If you looked at this person from all sides, you would say that from head to toe she was a woman, every inch. Liu Qingji looked at her and laughed. "I want to drink with women," he said. She laughed charmingly. "Can't you see that I'm a woman? You don't look like one. How could I convince you I'm a woman? Take off all your clothes, then we'll see." Her expression changed and she giggled. Suddenly, someone outside spoke. "It looks like our friend here has a lot of experience with women. He can't be fooled by a fake woman." By the time these 2 sentences were uttered, there were 5 more people in the room. One of them had a pale white face, and was dressed in expensive garments. Clean-shaven, with wrinkles in the corners of his eyes, it was a middle-aged man who obviously was Little Fifth Omniscient Tanking. The huge, towering monk was clearly Iron Monk. Ghost Meteor Shen Yifei and Soul Enticing Lazhou were both sickly and old in appearance, looking like 30% ghost and 70% killers. What Liu Qingji could never have anticipated was that Li the Mastiff was actually a refined, gentle-looking young man. Except that his face was covered in scars, and he was missing half an ear. Huyoer had guessed correctly on all counts. But Liu Qingji suddenly thought of something. She had only described 6 people, not 7. And right now, there were only 6. Who was the other person? Why hadn't Huyoer mentioned him? And why wasn't he here? 5 of the people wore no smile on their face. Only Tanking was smiling, and he was clearly the person who had just spoken. Liu Qingji laughed. "Your Excellency's experience with women clearly is not any less than mine." "You know me?" asked Tanking. "If I didn't know Your Excellency, how else could I know that you have a lot of experience with women?" Tanking's expression changed. With a stern voice, he said, "You came here looking for me?" "I came here to drink," replied Liu Qingji. "You specifically came here to drink?" "That's right. There are thousands of places to drink in the world, why would you pick this place?" "Because I like this place. It's new, and I'm a fickle person." Suddenly, the Iron Monk spoke out, "It just so happens that I really don't like fickle people." "What do you like?" asked Liu Qingji. "I like killing people. And I especially like killing fickle people such as yourself." The Iron Monk had ferocious-looking eyebrows and fierce eyes. His face was filled with hatred, and his eyes seethed with murderous intent. They were extremely frightening in appearance. Liu Qingji just laughed. "So you definitely want to kill me?" "You guessed correctly." "Then why haven't you come over here to try?" The Iron Monk was already moving forward. His whole body appeared to be sculpted from steel, and his carriage as he walked was like that of a gorilla. His footsteps were heavy and stable, and every step he took left footprints behind in the floor. The Iron Monk's external power was clearly exceptional. As for his 13 heroes' skill, who could say whether or not it had reached the level that his body was impervious to blades? Liu Qingji had nothing in his hands, not even a kitchen knife. Tang King watched him the same way he might look at a corpse. The gorgeously dressed young women were shaking in terror. The joints in Iron Monk's body made cracking sounds as he took 4 steps forward. It appeared as if he was preparing all his kung fu to attack, and that this attack could clearly not be defended against. But before he could attack, the refined and gentle-looking young man suddenly lunged toward Liu Qingji. His eyes were blood red, and he opened his mouth to reveal a set of ghastly white teeth. He really did appear to be a wild dog, unable to refrain from ripping out Liu Qingji's throat. It seemed like Liu Qingji didn't even notice him. In a flash, he was looming over Liu Qingji's body, his 2 hands grasping toward Liu Qingji's throat. And then strange snapping sound could be heard. Liu Qingji was still sitting there motionless. Li the Mastiff was also motionless. His 2 hands gripped Liu Qingji's neck. Except, his own head was twisted at a strange angle, and his eyes bulged from their sockets. A strange expression covered his face. Moments later, blood exploded from his mouth. The blood didn't splash onto Liu Qingji. Liu Qingji's body suddenly slid away like a fish, away from the woman and Li the Mastiff. Li the Mastiff toppled over onto the woman. The woman didn't move out of the way. Instead, she fell with him to the ground. She also had a bizarre expression on her face. Her eyes bulged from her face like those of a dead fish. 2 faces looked at each other, 2 sets of eyes stared at each other. They fell to the ground, motionless. 2 bodies, already growing cold and stiff. Tang King's face was ashen. He knew they were dead. And yet, he had never seen Liu Qingji move a finger. No one had seen Liu Qingji move. It was as if he didn't need to move a muscle to kill people. The Iron Monk had stopped walking. Blue veins pulsed in his forehead, and cold sweat dripped down his face. He liked to kill people, so he understood killing. And because of that, he was even more frightened than the others. Liu Qingji let out a long sigh. "I said I don't like to kill people. I just want to drink." Tang King said, "But you just did kill people, 2 of them." "That's because they wanted to kill me. And I didn't want to die, because dead people can't drink." Soul Enticing Lajo suddenly said, "Okay. Let's drink. I'll drink with you." He placed a pot of wine down onto the table. He first poured himself a cup, and then poured one for Liu Qingji. "To you," he said. He downed it in one gulp. The 2 cups had been poured from one pot. Liu Qingji looked at the cup in front of him and laughed. "I didn't come here to drink just 1 cup." Soul Enticing Lajo responded, "After you drink this cup, you can have another. If I drink this cup, I'll never have a chance to drink a second." Soul Enticing Lajo laughed coldly. "Don't tell me you think the wine is poisoned? Originally there was no poison in the wine. But there was poison on your pinky fingernail." Soul Enticing Lajo's face twisted. When he had poured the cup of wine for Liu Qingji, he had dipped his pinky fingernail in just a bit. His movement was nimble and dexterous, and impossible for others to see. And yet Liu Qingji knew. Liu Qingji looked at him and smiled. The wine you drink originally didn't have poison in it either. And now? He asked. You should be able to tell whether or not there's poison in it. Soul enticing Lao face suddenly darkened. He jumped up. When did you make your move? He shouted hoarsely. When did you put the poison in? I knew you would want to drink from these cups, so when you went to get the wine, I put the poison in the cups. How I did it was very simple, even you could pull it off. Soul enticing Lao didn't open his mouth again. It seemed as if an invisible rope was tightening around his neck. His breathing stopped, and he fell to the ground, his body convulsing. Liu Qingji sighed. I don't like killing people, but I was willing to kill 3 people just now. And yet the people who do like killing are just standing there motionless. The Iron Monk said nothing. He just turned and dashed out of the room. Huiwer had been correct. People who like killing are the ones who are most afraid of death. Liu Qingji had also been correct. Because the monk was afraid to die, he had practiced a type of kung fu that could make his body impervious to blades. But as soon as he met someone who didn't need blades to take the lives of others, he fled faster than anyone. Ghost Meteor fled just as quickly. Actually, the speed of his retreat really was like that of a meteor. Tang King didn't leave. Liu Qingji looked at him and laughed. Does your excellency also want to come have a try? Tang King laughed. Like you, I hate killing people. And like you, I came here to drink. Good. Like you, I have a lot of experience with women, and like you I am a fickle person. Great. So, we're birds of a feather. Let's have some drinks and chat. We can be friends. Smiling, he walked over and sat down. After all, there are wine and women here. There's definitely sufficient wine for us too. Tang King laughed. And there are sufficient women, as well. The women aren't sufficient, replied Liu Qingji. Not sufficient. Even though there are enough women, they just aren't pretty enough. Tang King laughed loudly. So, it turns out Your Excellency's way of looking at things is a bit more refined than mine. Actually, these women aren't really ugly, it's just that they can't really make you sick with love. The smile on Tang King's face suddenly froze. He looked at Liu Qingji in amazement. He appeared even more shocked than when he had just observed Liu Qingji kill the others. He finally understood Liu Qingji's purpose, but he still could not believe any person would have this amount of guts. Liu Qingji began tapping a cup with a chopstick, and slowly saying, It's said that you should never be sick with love, because lovesickness will make you grow old. But after you consider it over and over again, you realize that lovesickness really is better, lovesickness really is better. Tang King took in a deep breath, and then forced out a laugh. So, Your Excellency specifically came to this place to look for lovesickness? Liu Qingji sighed. What in the world is better than lovesickness? Nothing, replied Tang King. Definitely nothing. Tang King's eyes turned up in thought, and then he smiled eerily. Your humble self also knows a song. I'd like to sing it for Your Excellency. Liu Qingji let out a breath. Listening to men sing is boring, unless it's your own singing. But, if you really want to sing, go ahead. Tang King began singing. It's said that you should never be sick with love, because lovesickness will make you grow old. If you grow old, you will eventually die, and dying is never good. Liu Qingji shook his head firmly. Not very good. Tang King said, maybe my singing voice isn't very good, but the words are true. Liu Qingji had to agree. Correct. The truth never sounds good. If Your Excellency wants to find lovesickness, you'll not only grow old, you'll grow old exceptionally quick. Which means you will die sooner. Are you afraid of death? Who in the world isn't afraid of death? Me. He stared at Tang King, and continued coldly, because you are afraid of death, and I am not, you will take me there. Tang King continued to play dumb. Take you where? To find lovesickness. Tang King forced himself to smile. And what if I can't find it? Then you will never grow old, replied Liu Qingji evenly. Tang King couldn't force himself to smile anymore. He understood Liu Qingji's meaning, only dead people don't grow old. Liu Qingji continued to stare at him. They say that you guard a mountain cave for her. Since you're here, then she's definitely guarding the cave herself. So, you'll definitely be able to find her. Tang King wanted to deny that he understood what Liu Qingji was saying, but couldn't. Do you want to die? Asked Liu Qingji. Tang King shook his head. Liu Qingji drank a glass of wine. Then what do you want? I want you to die. He suddenly flew up into the air, spinning. At the same time a vortex of sand shot toward Liu Qingji. This was the Tanglan bark cloth tree poison sand. Surprisingly, Liu Qingji made no move to evade. Instead, he opened his mouth, out of which shot a shining spray. It was the wine he had just gulped down. In an instant, every single granule of sand, each smaller than a sesame seed, was blown back and embedded into the freshly painted wall. Tang King's face fell. He never imagined that someone could have this shocking ability. Liu Qingji smiled. This wine is called fishing hook wine, but sometimes it's also called worry sweeping broom. And sometimes it can be used to sweep away poison sand. Tang King laughed bitterly. I never imagined that drinking wine could have so many benefits. Yes. You really should drink more. I'll drink. Dead people can't drink. I know. So, now what are you thinking? I'm thinking I should take you there immediately. Liu Qingji laughed. I picked you because I could tell you are an intelligent person. I only have dealings with intelligent people. Tang King sighed. And because of you, intelligent people are often faced with vexation. Having vexation is better than not having vexation. Why is that? Because in this world, the only people who don't experience vexation are the dead. Lovesickness is a vexation, and so it makes people old. But if you think about it for a moment, really think about it, you will understand that if a person can experience lovesickness, it's better than not being able to experience lovesickness. Part 2. Where there are mountains, there are mountain caves. Some mountain caves are large, some mountain caves are small, some mountain caves are beautiful, some mountain caves are treacherous, some mountain caves are like a nostril that everyone can see, some mountain caves are like the navel of a fair maiden, which even though everyone knows exists, has never been seen. This mountain cave was more mysterious than the navel of a virgin. After traveling through 7 mountain passes, and climbing 6 treacherous slopes, they arrived at a cliff. The cliff was immense, so much so that the bottom could not be seen. Across from them was another precipice, about 15 or 20 feet away. The 2 cliffs faced each other, and far above, only a sliver of sky could be seen. Tang King at long last let out a long breath. We're here, he said. Where are we? Asked Liu Qingji. Tang King pointed at the cliff on the opposite side. You should be able to see it. Liu Qingji obviously had already caught sight of it. The opposing cliff face was as bare as if it had been carved out with a sword. There, amidst a wild growth of wisteria, was the black mouth of a cave. White clouds wafted to and fro, and eagles could be seen soaring about. Even though Liu Qingji could see the cave, he wasn't sure how to get there. Tang King suddenly asked, have you read the poem Call of the Waterfowl from the Book of Odes? No, I haven't. The idea behind the poem is that there is a fair maiden standing at an estuary. On the other side is a horny prince. Even though he can see her, he has no way to reach her, no matter how hard he wants to. This cave is like that fair maiden. And I'm the prince? You only asked me to bring you here, and so I have. I never imagined that you were an educated man. Tang King laughed. I wouldn't dare claim to be. Liu Qingji glanced at the treacherous cliff face. If an educated man fell down this cliff, he said coolly, I wonder if he would die the same as an uneducated man? Tang King tried to laugh, but couldn't. He couldn't even speak. Suddenly, he squatted down and twisted a piece of nearby rock. A wire cable shot forth, at the head of which was a steel awl. A dinging sound rang out as the awl embedded itself into the opposite cliff face, just below the cave mouth, forming an extremely narrow bridge. Tang King bowed and said, Please, after you. I would rather the educated man go first. Tang King's face lost its color. You want me to go with you? Yes, and I want you in front. If we fall to our deaths, you can fall first. With a long face, Tang King replied, If Madame Lovesickness finds out that I brought you here, I'm dead. That's better than falling to your death right now. Life is a treasure. Being able to live even one moment longer is good. And who knows, maybe I can think of a way to keep you alive. Really? Asked Tang King. I'm an uneducated person. The word of an uneducated person is generally dependable. Tang King let out a long sigh, and then laughed. As it turns out, reading a lot of books isn't such a good thing after all. Part 3. The wire was slippery, and the mountain wind blew violently. They walked across, knowing that with one slight misstep they would plummet down. And if they fell, they would become flat meat cakes. Luckily, the distance between the two cliffs was not great. As soon as they stepped forth onto the cable, they heard a friendly voice from inside, Close your eyes as you enter. I'm bathing. The entrance to the cave was deep. From the outside it appeared pitch black, but as they walked in, they could see that it was illuminated by lamps. The pink-colored lamplight was soft and entrancing. The voice was even more soft and entrancing than the lamplight. Liu Qingji didn't close his eyes. In fact, it would have been strange if he had. As he walked forward, his eyes widened, as if he had just entered a fairyland. Except, this cave was more beautiful than a fairyland. In the middle of cave was a cistern formed by a hot spring, encircled by a balustrade of white wood. There was a woman in the cistern, only her head visible above the surface of the water. Black hair floated like storm clouds, further drawing attention to the woman's face. It was like a spring flower, and her skin was extremely smooth. Sadly, the water was not clear. Liu Qingji let out a breath. He knew that what was beneath the water was even more amazing. Madame Lovesickness's radiant, enchanting eyes really were like undulating ripples on the limpid waters of an autumn pond. She was staring at him with those eyes, seeming to be smiling without smiling, both happy and angry. Her voice was as beautiful as the call of a mountain oriole. Didn't I tell you to close your eyes? She asked. You did, replied Liu Qingji. Your eyes don't appear to be closed. Liu Qingji sighed. I've braved countless dangers, narrowly escaped from death, all just to be able to lay eyes on you. At long last, I'm finally here. How could I possibly close my eyes? But I'm taking a bath at the moment. He laughed. After I heard you were taking a bath, I was even less willing to close my eyes. Madame Lovesickness let out another breath. It seems you are not only disobedient, you're also dishonest. Everything I said was completely honest. Aren't you afraid that I might dig out your eyes? I'm not afraid of you chopping off my head, much less digging out my eyes. You're not afraid of death? Fear death? Why fear death? The world is like an inn, and people are like customers. What happiness is there in life, what fear is there in death? So, it turns out you're an educated man, she said in her beautiful voice. He smiled. The ancients said, if a man in the morning hears the right way, he can die in the evening without regret. As long as I am able to see the madam, I'm just as willing to die. She looked at him seductively. Haven't you already seen me? I yearned for day and night, and finally my desire is fulfilled. So that means you're ready to die now. Not yet. You haven't seen enough yet. He laughed. I haven't. In fact, there are quite a few places I still haven't seen at all yet. Madame Lovesickness stared at him, a look on her face that made it seem she didn't understand. He stared at her, looking as if he wished his eyesight could penetrate the water. What I can see now is only a small part. The most important part, I can't see. How much do you want to see? All of it. It seemed as if Madame Lovesickness's face was reddening. You're quite ambitious. Men who aren't ambitious don't count as true men. She bit her lip. If I really let you see, who's to say you wouldn't have further ambitions? He laughed. Who says I don't already? Her two captivating eyes stared at him, unblinking. You don't really count as a good-looking man. Of course I'm not. But, you're different from most other men. He laughed again. Maybe in more way than one. I like men who are out of the ordinary, she said softly. Every woman under heaven likes men who are out of the ordinary. Leave, she said, suddenly. Liu Qingji didn't move. He knew that she wasn't talking to him, she was talking to Tang King. Tang King left immediately, his eyes still closed. He had never opened them. Liu Qingji laughed. It looks like he's an obedient man. He doesn't dare to be disobedient. So, if he leaves, I definitely have to stay. Women don't like men who are too obedient, but you. She looked at Liu Qingji out of the corner of her eye, her look as smooth as silk. You're just standing there like a simpleton, are you willing to do anything else? He didn't say anything in response. He used actions as a response. Women also don't like men who don't take action. He suddenly walked to the edge of the cistern, throwing off his shoes. Madame Lovesickness's eyes widened, as in shock. You dare come in? Liu Qingji had already begun throwing off other items of clothing. You obviously know who I am, aren't you afraid I'll kill you? He didn't say anything, he was in too much of a hurry. Can't you tell there is a special quality to this water? She asked. Apparently, he didn't. After all, he wasn't looking at the water. His gaze was fixed on Madame Lovesickness's eyes. There's a special drug dissolved into the water, she said. Other than me, anyone who enters will die. He had already jumped in. There was a splash, and water flew everywhere. It seems you really aren't afraid of death. She sighed again. Many men have said they were willing to die for me, but the men who were really ready to do so, other than you. She didn't say anything more, she couldn't. Because she couldn't exhale. There is only one method to defeat a woman. And Liu Qingji used the correct method. People don't necessarily smile when they are most happy, and they don't necessarily moan only when they are pain. At this point, the moaning had ceased, and all that remained was panting, rapturous panting. Surging ripples of water finally subsided into calmness. People talk about heaven like libido, panted Madame Lovesickness, but your libido is larger than the heavens. Liu Qingji closed his eyes, lacking the energy to speak. Actually, continued Madame Lovesickness, I know that you didn't just come here for me. You have some other goal. Women usually like to talk, and at this time they usually have more energy than the man. So, she continued. But for some reason, I decided not to kill you. Liu Qingji suddenly laughed. I know why. Because I am not an ordinary man. She sighed, unwilling to argue. So, the water wasn't poisoned, said Liu Qingji. Madame Lovesickness didn't deny it. There are plenty of ways to kill you if I want to. If a woman wants a man dead, there definitely are lots of ways to do it. Therefore, you'd best tell me why you really came here. Immediately. You mean you're already thinking of killing me? Only new men can be considered out of the ordinary, she said levelly. So I'm already not new? Women are the same as men, she said in a sweet voice. We also are fickle. Liu Qingji sighed lightly. But you forgot something. Oh? Some men are like women, in that, if they want a woman to die, they can find lots of ways to do it. Well, it depends, she said ingratiatingly, on what type of woman the man was dealing with. Any kind of woman. She laughed even more haughtily. Even a woman like me? As for you, I probably would only use one method. If it was effective, then I wouldn't need to think about other ways. Then why don't you give it a shot? I already did, he replied. She laughed even harder. And was it effective? Of course. What method was it? The water didn't have poison in it before, he said in a relaxed tone. But now it does. Her voice suddenly became stiff. You. She whispered. I already took the antidote, of course. When did you put the poison in? She asked, seeming unconvinced. The poison was hidden under my fingernail. When I jumped in, it dissolved into the water. And the antidote? I took it when I was taking my clothes off. I know that a man taking his clothes off is not a pretty sight, and that women generally don't want to watch. Emotions flickered across her face. Suddenly, she slid toward Liu Chengji like a fish, her 10 fingers extended, clawing toward his larynx. And that was when she found out that Liu Chengji wasn't lying. She suddenly felt her body grow soft, her hands weak. All her energy seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Liu Chengji grabbed her hand gently. Men are also fickle, he said softly. You're already not so new, so you'd better be a good girl. Her face was draining of color. You really want to kill me? He sighed. I don't want to. Even before he finished speaking, he had sealed 3 of the acupuncture points on her large, firm chest. Everything else was relatively simple. The hidden door was located behind a large Persian felt that hung on the cave wall. The 1,000-pound door wasn't actually 1,000 pounds, and wasn't that difficult to open. Liu Chengji's hands really were incredibly dexterous. Tang King had disappeared without a trace, but the cable bridge was still there. Another person might think that they had struck it very lucky, but Liu Chengji was not that type of person. If a person's method is correct, things will go smoothly, no matter what difficulty they encounter. His methods definitely were out of the ordinary. The inn that had been built to be destroyed was still there. Of the people sent to destroy it, 3 were dead and 3 had fled. There are many such situations under heaven, foolproof plans that go awry and impossible tasks that are unexpectedly accomplished. There really is no distinct line between success and failure, so one should not take matters too seriously. The lamps in the inn were still lit, and the people inside were still waiting. The sky was still dark, and until it was light, they dared not leave. Carrying a small sandalwood box wrapped up in cloth, Liu Chengji strolled in. So it turns he didn't die after all, he actually returned. The girls' eyes were wide as they looked at him, they could see that he was clearly a very capable person. There was wine on the table. Liu Chengji sat down and made himself comfortable. Now really was an appropriate time to be comfortable and have a drink. He was thinking of pouring himself a drink, but before he could, the girl with the largest eyes of them all approached. She seemed to be the most intelligent of them all as well. Her hips swayed as she walked over, smiling sweetly. How is lovesickness? Good, very good. She smiled enchantingly and took in a deep breath, causing her chest to stick out. My name is Satisfy. I'm also good. He laughed. You do look good. But sadly, although you might be able to satisfy me, I wouldn't be able to satisfy you. Why? She asked, with a seductive glance. Because what I have wrapped up in this bundle is neither gold nor jewels. Satisfy didn't seem to be disappointed. She continued to smile bewitchingly. What I want isn't gold or jewels. What I want is you. Unfortunately, said another voice, he has already been bought by another. The voice came from outside. Satisfy turned her head and saw a beautiful woman, as ethereal as an orchid, as proud as a peacock. She walked in from the darkness. Kong Lanjun had also come. In her presence, Satisfy suddenly felt like she looked like a chicken. She let out a soft breath and quietly said, "Who would have that there were men in our line of work, and that they could be bought?" Liu Qingji also sighed. "I do a pretty good job, although maybe not as good as you." She smiled sweetly. "But, I really like you. One day when you're free, I'll buy you for a few days." She chuckled and pinched Liu Qingji's cheek. Then she gathered the other girls together to leave. "It looks like there's no business here. Let's go back and get some rest." Liu Qingji's eyes followed them as they left, looking a little disappointed. Kong Lanjun had already sat down and was staring at him. "You can't bear to part with them?" she asked coldly. He let out a breath. "I'm a very sentimental person." She ground her teeth. "You really are inhuman," she said venomously. "Luckily, a lot of women actually like inhuman men. Those women are also inhuman." "What about you?" She let out a light breath. "It seems I'm quickly becoming inhuman," she said softly. In a moment, her entire countenance changed, from that of a proud peacock, to that of a gentle dove. It seemed Liu Qingji had used the correct method to deal with her as well. Some women are like hard-shelled nuts. You need to use a hammer to break them open. Right now she looked like a heart nut that had been cracked open to reveal a tender and supple heart. Looking at her, Liu Qingji felt like he had won a great conquest, and there is nothing that can make a person happier than this type of feeling. And then, he suddenly seemed to soften. "After you have conquered a woman, there's no need for the hammer anymore." He reached out his hand and took hold of hers. "Actually," he said, "I know that you treated me well." She lowered her head. You really believe that?" "I also know that you had a good plan. But you didn't do anything according to my plan." "Because I'm an impetuous person. I usually like to use a more direct method." She lifted her head and stared at him, her beautiful eyes swirling with concern. "But, I really think your way was just too dangerous." He laughed. "It doesn't matter now, the matter is handled already." Her eyes shone. "Really?" "Yes." "You have the item already?" He pointed at the bundle on the table. Kong Lanjun looked at him, exuding both affection and admiration. Seemingly unable to hold back her emotions, she grasped his two hands and placed them on her face. "Now I know, you're not just a real man, you're an amazing man." Liu Qingji was even more happy than before. Upon hearing words like this, any man would be just as happy. He couldn't help but smile. "Actually, I'm not that amazing, it's just..." He didn't complete the sentence, and he probably never would. Because at that moment, Kong Lanjun suddenly grabbed him with both hands, digging her fingertips into his wrists. She flipped him up and tossed him, using an advanced Mongolian wrestling technique. She flipped his body over like a dead fish and slammed him face first onto the table. Her hands sped down his spine, sealing all of the acupuncture points. She laughed coldly. "You obviously aren't amazing at all, you're just a cocky rabid dog." Liu Qingji was speechless. "Do you really think I would be won over by that kind of method?" She was still laughing coldly. "Mark my words, you screwed up. It doesn't matter who strikes me, I will pay them back tenfold." Her hand laid hold of a wooden plank and she began slamming it down onto his butt. Over and over she hit him, not holding back in the least bit, 30 times in total. He could do nothing but wait until she finished the beating. "This time I'm just teaching you a lesson," she said. "From now on, don't underestimate women." She grabbed the bundle from the table. "I'll take this. I just hope that your luck isn't too bad, and that Kaya Hangbo, Tanking and the others don't come back looking for you." How bitter to see the meal you so carefully prepared suddenly being eaten by the mouth of another. Who could imagine the feeling in Liu Qingji's heart as her voice faded into the distance? It's not that he was incapable of speaking, but what was there that he could say? "Women, Liu Qingji sighed, suddenly coming to the realization that one should not offend a woman. Unfortunately, he had offended a lot of women. He couldn't even bear to think about what would happen if Madame Lovesick really did come looking for him. Let alone Shen Yifei, Iron Monk, Tai King. Each and every one of them would certainly have plenty of ways to torment him. He could only lay there on the table waiting. At this point he didn't look like a rabid dog, he looked like a dead dog. It was hard to say how much time passed. It seemed like millions of years. The sun had long since risen. Luckily, the waiters and the girls had left, otherwise he would have to stand up and beat his head against the wall until he died.